On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima military base in Japan. Despite the extreme devastation caused by the weapon, the Japanese military refused to surrender. 3 days later, President Harry S. Truman reluctantly ordered another bomb dropped on Nagasaki, Japan. The mounting death toll forced a Japanese surrender and ended World War II. However, the dropping of the two atomic bombs led to another, longer war and arms race between the US and its new enemy, the USSR. The road to the atomic age began in 1917 when New Zealander Ernest Rutherford changed a nitrogen atom into an oxygen atom through nuclear fission. This discovery led to a very disturbing problem in 1938. Nazi scientists began developing a weapon that used fission to create a much larger explosion than any seen before. Terrified by possible consequences if Hitler developed a weapon of this magnitude, German immigrant Leo Szilard convinced his friend Albert Einstein to co-sign a letter to then-President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In this correspondence, Szilard and Einstein informed Roosevelt of their suspicions about Hitler's project and urged him to begin a similar project with American scientists. Unfortunately, the ongoing Great Depression and the start of World War II in Europe put this warning far out of Roosevelt's mind for a time. However, after 3 years, the true power of weaponized atomic fission was becoming apparent, and Roosevelt was forced to act. He officially began the American atomic experiment, codenamed the Manhattan Project, in September of 1942. However, it did not start in earnest until October of the same year, when General Leslie R. Groves took over command. Groves appointed J. Robert Oppenheimer head of the project and began to order supplies. Simultaneously, he appointed famous scientific minds such as Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, Enrico Fermi, and Leo Szilard as consultants to the project. After 3 years of development, the first atomic test was performed at an Air Force base in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Codenamed Trinity by Oppenheimer, this test was the largest chemical explosion in history. It proved to both the scientists and new President Harry S. Truman that their years of development had paid off. They immediately finished working on their final bombs, one named Little Boy and one named Fat Man. Little Boy, a uranium-235 bomb, was smaller and more compact than its partner due to its use of a gun-type detonation system, and had the detonation power of 16 kilotons of TNT. Fat Man, on the other hand, was a bomb that was activated by an explosive layer around its plutonium core, and was therefore much rounder and larger with a detonation power of 21 kilotons. When the development of these weapons was finished, President Truman realized that he now had a way of ending the Pacific theater of World War II, as the European theater had already been resolved. He held off even considering the use of such a horrific weapon, until he only had a choice between it and a very costly American land invasion against the 2 million strong Japanese forces. After weighing his options, Truman decided to give Japan a chance to stop the massive destruction that would result from the bombs. While demanding unconditional surrender from Japan, he made the following speech at the Potsdam Conference.
If they do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth.
When the Japanese government received this ultimatum, they replied with a statement of mokusatsu, or treating with silent contempt. After this ignorance of US demands, Truman decided that he had no other option than to drop the bomb. On August 6, 1945, at 2:45 a.m., the bomber Enola Gay took off from Tinian Airfield, preceded and followed by the 7 other planes in its entourage. It was carrying the uranium bomb Little Boy, which was armed during the flight. After 7 hours, Little Boy was dropped over Hiroshima at 9:15 and exploded 45 seconds later. Despite the enormous destruction caused by the bomb and the estimated death toll of over 100,000, the Japanese military leaders refused to surrender. President Truman announced his reasons for the attack to the American public the following day.
The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. We have used it in order to shorten the agony of war.
Although Truman's decision faced some criticism, many newspaper headlines reflected the feeling that the bomb had ushered in a new age and was sure to end the war. Despite nationwide optimism about the swift end of the conflict, continued silence from the Japanese led Truman to drop the second US bomb, Fat Man, on the Japanese military base of Nagasaki on the 9th of August. The continued destruction and added death toll of 70,000 led the Japanese military to finally agree to an unconditional surrender, and on September 2, 1945, Japanese Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu signed the surrender documents aboard the USS Missouri. Many citizens rejoiced at the end of the horrific Second World War, but those higher up in the government knew that the decision to drop the atomic bombs had begun another, possibly more dangerous conflict between the United States and the USSR. Many believed that in ordering the attacks, Truman had another, higher motive than the end of World War II. The president realized that Joseph Stalin, the Soviet premier, was putting Russia on the path to becoming a major world power. Also realizing that when World War II was won, the US would undoubtedly emerge as the rival superpower, Truman was wary of Stalin becoming more powerful than the US. He saw the bombs as a perfect opportunity to solidify US control over the Soviet Union. To further this goal, Truman remarked to Stalin at the Potsdam Conference that the US had developed a weapon more powerful than any the world had seen before. Expecting a major reaction from the premier, Truman was mildly surprised when Stalin brushed off the comment as if it did not matter. Unbeknownst to Truman, he had gravely miscalculated the secrecy of the Manhattan Project. Stalin had known of the American atomic projects for many years because he had an inside man, Dr. Klaus Fuchs. As a result, Stalin was well informed on the process of weaponized atomic fission and was well prepared for the American display of power. When he heard of the bombing of Hiroshima, Stalin immediately ordered his team of scientists to begin development on their own atomic bomb. Due to their inside information from the Manhattan Project, the scientists had developed a bomb after only 4 years. And on August 29, 1949, they conducted their first test at Semipalatinsk nuclear test site in modern-day Kazakhstan. This was the official beginning of the US-Soviet nuclear arms race that would eventually lead to weapons so powerful that a nuclear war between the two countries would assure their destruction. These weapons, such as hydrogen bombs and nuclear warheads, led to a new type of war, a Cold War. If either country actually fired their weapons, the catastrophic damage would wipe out both nations. As a result, they were forced to use atomic diplomacy to settle their disputes. This technique, which consisted of one country threatening to use their weapons on the other, was used successfully to resolve conflicts such as the Berlin blockade of 1949 and the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The threat of total destruction created a worldwide paranoia expressed in popular images. The most famous of these was the Doomsday Clock, an image printed monthly by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists that showed how many minutes the world was from midnight or nuclear holocaust. Even presidential candidates fed off of this paranoia, as with Lyndon Johnson's infamous Daisy campaign commercial.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Nuclear attack drills became common in both the United States and Russia, and cities built nuclear bomb shelters to protect their citizens. These drills became a part of daily life for many people who were forced to accept the threat of imminent destruction. In 1963, the US and the USSR signed a limited nuclear test ban treaty in an attempt to stop the ever-escalating nuclear arms race. Two other treaties, the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaties 1 and 2, furthered the dismantling of the two countries' nuclear systems. Despite these preventative measures, the Manhattan Project would have far-reaching consequences that could not have been foreseen so many years ago. The use of atomic weapons continues to be a hotly debated topic to this day, and articles crop up in major newspapers around the world. Even after the breakup of the USSR, the nearly 60 years of Cold War led to a deep-seated animosity between the US and Russia that lasts to this day. Also, countless rogue nations in the Middle East and Asia now possess nuclear weapons hundreds of times more powerful than those detonated in 1945. However, the project also led to developments that gave these countries clean, renewable nuclear energy, nuclear medicine, and means of propulsion for deep space exploration. The Manhattan Project changed the way people think about warfare and ushered in a new age of atomic discovery that will last far into the future.